My name's James. I'm 34 years old, and this happened in Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm not someone who likes talking about personal stuff, but this has been sitting in my head for years. Sometimes I feel like if I don't tell it straight, it's just gonna stay there and rot. This all started about a year after my mom passed away. My younger brother David was 27 at the time. He didn't have a place to stay, and I figured I could help him out for a while. I had a small 2-bedroom apartment, nothing special. Beige carpets, old heater that made a clicking sound every 10 minutes, windows that rattled when the wind hit just right. It was quiet, boring, and for me that was perfect. When David showed up, he looked rough, pale, thinner than I remembered, that kind of empty-eyed tiredness you see in people who've been up too many nights. He said he was trying to quit smoking, but his jacket still smelled like menthol cigarettes and something burnt. We hugged, and he held on longer than usual. He said, "Just until I get back on my feet." I said, "Yeah, sure. Stay as long as you need." The first few days were fine. We cooked together, talked a bit about Mom, watched dumb TV. He laughed sometimes, but not the same way as before. It felt like the sound came from the wrong part of his chest. Around the third night, he started staying up late. I'd go to bed around midnight and hear him moving in the hallway. Slow footsteps, a pause, then more steps. The first time I saw him doing it, it freaked me out. He was standing in the hallway, barefoot, just listening. I asked, "You okay, man?" He jumped like I'd shocked him. "Yeah," he said, "just can't sleep." I brushed it off. He'd been through a lot. We both had. But the next night I woke up again around 2:30 and saw his shadow under my door. He was just standing there. When I opened the door, he stepped back like he'd been caught doing something. I asked what he was doing. He said, "Just checking the air vent. It's making a sound." And he was right. The vent made this weird high-pitched whistle whenever the heater kicked in. But the way he said it, the tone, made me uneasy. It wasn't annoyance. It was like he was listening to it talk. The next few days, small things started to feel off. He turned all the picture frames in the living room face down, every single one. When I asked him why, he said, "They reflect light at night. I don't like it." I told him, "The blinds are closed, dude." He said, "Still, better like this." I laughed it off, turned them back up, went to work. When I got home, they were face down again. It didn't even look like a joke. He'd lined them up perfectly, all pointing the same direction like it mattered. Then there was the bathroom thing. He'd spend 20-30 minutes in there with the fan off, talking in a low voice. At first, I thought he was on the phone, but one night I listened closer. He wasn't talking to anyone. He was saying short phrases. "No, not me. Stop. Not me." When I knocked, he just said, "I'm fine." He also started asking weird stuff, like if we could keep both bedroom doors open at night. He said it helped him breathe better. I said okay once, but when I tried closing mine halfway again, he opened it. Every single night. I still kept telling myself it was just grief. I'd read somewhere that loss can mess with your sleep, your sense of reality. I wanted to believe that was all this was. Then one afternoon, I went to make dinner. I opened the kitchen drawer, and all the knives were gone. Every single one. "Hey," I said, "where are the knives?" He looked up from the table like I'd just asked him about the weather. "I put them away," he said. "Where?" "Somewhere safer." "Safer from what?" I asked. He said, "It's just better this way." That night I found them. He'd wrapped them in a pillowcase, sealed it with heavy fabric tape, and stuck it behind the water heater in the basement. He'd even written something on the tape in small letters, "Do not cut toward yourself." When I showed him what I found, he didn't yell or apologize. He just said, "You shouldn't have touched that." His voice was calm, but cold, like I'd broken a rule I didn't know existed. I started feeling uncomfortable in my own home. He wasn't violent, not yet, but he was unpredictable. He moved slow, deliberate, and sometimes I'd catch him standing in a doorway just watching me. When I asked what he wanted, he'd smile and say, "Nothing, just thinking." The tension was constant. One morning I left for work and noticed the thermostat was at 66. I always kept it at 68. That night, when I got home, it was back at 68 again. It happened 3 times before I realized he was adjusting it when I wasn't there. The same with the blinds. He'd open them a few inches, then close them exactly halfway. Once, I watched from my car after pretending to leave. He waited a few minutes, walked to the window, pulled the blinds, and then just stood there, staring out like he was waiting for someone to walk by. I stopped sleeping properly. Every sound in that apartment made my stomach twist. He was quiet most of the day, but at night he'd move around just enough to remind me he was awake. Sometimes I'd wake up and hear whispering again. Not words I could make out, just a rhythm, like he was repeating something to keep himself calm. Then one night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to a scraping noise in the kitchen, like chair legs dragging across the floor. When I walked in, he was standing on the counter, reaching up to the top shelf where I'd hidden the knives. He froze when he saw me. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "You left them wrong." "Wrong how?" Pointing at the room. "Why does that matter?" He stared at me for a second and said, "You don't point things at the room when people are sleeping." He climbed down, pushed the chair back in, and walked to his room without another word. That was the first night I locked my bedroom door. After that night with the knives, I couldn't relax around David anymore. I didn't say it out loud, but I didn't trust him. It's not like he'd done anything violent, but there was something about the way he looked at things. Slow-focused, like he was trying to figure out how everything fit together in a way I couldn't see. A few days later, I noticed he wasn't sleeping in the bed anymore. I found his mattress in the closet. The doors were off the tracks, and the mattress was wedged inside. He'd lined the top shelf with folded towels and stacked boxes like little walls around him. He told me it was warmer in there. It wasn't. That closet shared a wall with the outside, and you could feel the draft. At night, I'd hear him whispering numbers under his breath. It took me a while to realize what he was doing. He was counting corners. Each room, 4 corners, sometimes more if there were vents or doors. He'd count them forward, then backward. Once I caught him counting the tiles on the kitchen floor, touching each one with his finger. When I asked what he was doing, he said, "If I stop in the wrong place, it starts again." I asked, "What starts again?" He said, "It doesn't matter. I tried talking him into seeing someone, a therapist, a doctor, anyone. He told me, 'I'm fine. I just need quiet.'" Then he added, "It doesn't like when I talk about it." I said, "What doesn't?" He looked toward the hallway vent and said, "Don't make me say it. It listens harder when I do." That night I locked my door again. The next week he started doing weird routines. He'd leave the faucet running for exactly 30 seconds before filling a glass. He'd sniff food before eating it, even if I'd just opened it. He started putting Vicks under his nose before bed. Every single night. My apartment smelled like menthol and dust all the time. Then there was the basement. My basement's old, unfinished, just concrete floor and a small workbench. One night, I woke up around 3 and heard tapping down there. Soft, steady, like metal on cement. I went down with my phone flashlight and found him crouched near the wall, running a flathead screwdriver along the edge of a cinder block. He'd drawn a rectangle on the wall with pencil about 3 feet wide and written "Don't open" in shaky letters inside it. He looked at me and said, "There's a hollow spot behind this one, hear it?" He tapped, "Tock, tock." I said, "You're not breaking my wall, David." He said, "It's not your wall." That's when I took the screwdriver out of his hand. He didn't fight me, but he looked disappointed. He said, "He's quieter when I work." We went upstairs, and he went straight to the closet and didn't come out until morning. The next day, I found the basement door, sealed with strips of thick tape. Each piece was cut the same length, forming perfect X's across the frame. When I asked why, he said, "To stop it from coming through." I should have called someone right then. But it is hard to call the cops or a hospital on your own brother when you were still trying to believe he just needs sleep. As an older brother, I can still see there were still moments where he seemed okay. He'd drink coffee with me, talk about work, laugh at old stories. One afternoon we went to the park near the river. He said the air felt cleaner there. Then, in the middle of a normal conversation, he said, "You ever feel like you're being timed?" He said, "Like you only have so many quiet seconds before it needs noise again." I didn't know what to say to that. I tried to get him to spend time with people. He joined some recovery group in a church basement, said he liked the coffee even though it tasted like burnt paper. He said the people there were too honest, which makes them safe. That actually made me feel better for a bit. Then one Sunday, everything broke. It was snowing that morning, light, the kind that just floats around. He was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, staring at the window. I said, "I'm running to the store. Need anything?" He said, 33 minutes. "For what?" "The window," he said. I asked again, but he didn't answer. I left anyway. I only made it to the parking lot. I sat there with the car running, thinking about that number, 33 minutes. I told myself it was nothing, just another one of his weird habits. But I couldn't stop thinking about it, so I went back home early. When I opened the door, the air hit me first. It was freezing, the window was cracked open. The whole place smelled like menthol, ammonia, and metal, like when you get a nosebleed. David was standing by the window, his hands at his sides, face inches from the glass. He was whispering, slow and steady. I said, "David, what are you doing?" He didn't look at me. He said something so quietly I almost missed it. I let it in. Then again, I let it in. His breath was fogging the glass. I don't know why I did it, but I walked over and slammed the window shut. The sound snapped him out of it. He turned around so fast it scared me. His face looked pale, eyes wide. He shouted, "Don't! You don't understand!" He tried to open it again, and when I grabbed his wrist, he hit me in the chest. Not hard, just enough to shock me. Then he started crying. "I can't keep it," he said. "Please, I can't keep it." I pulled him away and held onto him until he stopped struggling. Then I called 911. That night they took him to the hospital. The doctors said it was a psychotic episode. They kept him 3 days for observation. When I visited, he was quiet, calmer, but not the same. He told me, "It's better there. They don't have vents." Then he smiled in a weird way and asked, "Can you bring me my tape measure?" Not clothes, not food. The tape measure. I said, "What for?" He said, "It helps me keep things even." I didn't bring it. He came home a week later. He was still quieter than normal, but he seemed more aware. He slept in the bed again instead of the closet. We even watched a movie together one night, an old comedy Mom used to love. For the first time in weeks, it felt almost normal, but that didn't last. For a little while after he came back from the hospital, things really did seem better. He'd get up early, make coffee, even talk a little while we ate breakfast. He didn't stay up all night, didn't whisper to himself, and the frames stayed where I left them. It almost made me believe the worst was behind us, but deep down I knew it wasn't. About a week after he came home, I noticed he was doing small things again. At first, nothing dramatic, just habits. He'd adjust the thermostat a few degrees, look over his shoulder when walking past vents, keep the closet light on all night. Then I heard him whispering again, not words I could make out, just the same low muttering sound he used to make before everything fell apart. I tried to ignore it. I wanted to believe he was recovering, not slipping back into the same hole. But every night, he stayed up later, pacing the hallway. Sometimes I'd hear him open and close the bathroom door slowly, like he was testing the hinges. Other times, I'd wake up and smell that strong menthol scent again, the Vicks he used to smear under his nose before bed. One night, he knocked on my door around midnight. When I opened it, he looked pale and wired. He said, "Do you ever hear it talking again?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Through the air. It's quieter now, but sometimes it hums." I told him it was just the heater. He shook his head. "No, it waits until the heater stops." That was the first night I noticed he started marking things with small pencil dots on the walls, on the window frame, even on the edge of the table. When I asked what they were for, he said, "So I'll know if it moves." "What moves?" I asked. He said, "The space." I didn't sleep much after that. On the 11th day, he seemed calm again. He helped me fix the door hinge, even joked around while we made dinner. We watched TV until almost midnight. When he went to bed, he said, "You can lock your door tonight if you want. It's okay." I told him I didn't need to. He smiled. "You should anyway." That should have been a warning. Around 3:30 that night, I woke up suddenly. No noise, just that feeling something's off. My room smelled like menthol and something faintly chemical, like cleaning fluid. The air felt heavier, thicker. I turned over and saw the shadow of someone by the window. It was David. He was standing there, completely still, his face inches from the glass. When I turned on the lamp, he didn't even blink. I said, "What the hell are you doing?" He didn't answer. He just raised one finger and slowly wrote the number 33 in the fog from his breath on the window. Then he wrote it again, smaller, like a signature. "David," I said, "stop." He didn't move. He whispered, "It's quieter when I do it." I got up and walked toward him. The closer I got, the more I could see the condensation on the glass spreading down, like he'd been breathing on it for a long time. I grabbed his arm and pulled him back from the window. His skin was freezing cold. He turned toward me slowly, like he was waking up from something. He looked at the foggy numbers, then at me, and said, "I'm sorry. It's quieter this way." I said, "You need to sit down. You're scaring me." He said, "Don't worry. It doesn't like me anymore. It's your turn." Then he smiled just for a second, and it didn't look like him. It wasn't a crazy grin or anything. It was just wrong, like he was forcing a calm face when everything inside him was gone. I called 911 again. He didn't fight me this time. He sat down on the floor, put his hands on his knees, and started counting. 33, 32, 31. All the way down to 1, then back up again. He was still counting when the paramedics came. He went with them quietly. That was the last night he stayed in my apartment. After he left, I couldn't stand the place anymore. Every sound made me jump. The vent, the heater, even water running through the pipes. I moved out a few months later. Before I left, I had the landlord check everything. The furnace, the vents, carbon monoxide levels, anything that could explain it. Everything tested normal. David stayed in a treatment program for a while. They said he was stable, but he'd always need monitoring. He was diagnosed with paranoid delusional disorder, basically a polite way of saying he wasn't seeing the world the same way as everyone else. He had good days, though. Days where he sounded totally like himself. He'd call me, talk about normal stuff like coffee, sports, the weather. Then every now and then he'd drop something weird in there, like "Don't leave the vent open when it's windy," or "Numbers keep things even." And he'd say it in the same calm tone, like a reminder, not a warning. The doctors said he was improving, and maybe he was, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something from that house, from that window, stuck with both of us. When I moved into my new place, I promised myself it would be a fresh start. New apartment, new furniture, no vents that whistle. I kept telling myself it was all mental illness, nothing more. But every now and then, I'd hear a faint hum when the heat kicked in and my body would tense automatically. Sometimes I'd catch myself checking if the knives were pointing toward the wall. Not because I believed any of it, but because not checking made me anxious. Old habits stick when they're tied to fear. About a month after I moved in, something happened that made it all come rushing back. It was a cold morning, and I'd just made coffee. The window over the sink had fogged up from the steam. I turned away for maybe 5 seconds, and when I looked back, I swear to God, there were 2 small numbers written in the condensation. I'm a 34-year-old man, and I'm aware of what I saw. It looked like someone had traced it with a fingertip. I just stood there, staring at it. The air felt heavy again, like in the old apartment. I wiped it away, but my handprint stayed on the glass longer than it should have. That was the worst part, realizing it was my print. It matched my own hand. So maybe I'd done it without noticing, or maybe it was already there. Either way, it didn't matter. I felt sick. Since then, I keep things simple. I point the knives toward the wall. I wipe every bit of condensation off the windows as soon as I see it. And when the vent makes that faint whistle sound, I put my hand over it until it stops. It's stupid, but it helps. I still visit David. He's doing okay, or at least that's what they tell me. He lives in a group home now. He doesn't talk much about what happened, and neither do I. Last time I saw him, he said, "It's quieter there. No windows you can open." I said that was good. He nodded, then said, "You still hear it sometimes, don't you?" I told him no. He smiled a little and said, "That's good. Don't start counting." That was 2 months ago. I don't know if he's crazy or if grief and stress broke something in him. Maybe both. But here's the part I can't explain. Since that night, I haven't been able to sleep with the blinds open. If I do, I wake up around 3:33 a.m. every single time. Not 3:32, not 3:34, always 3:33. No sound, no reason, just awake. And every time I check the window, just to make sure there's nothing written there. That's it. That's what happened. There's no big twist, no monster in the vent, no ghost behind the glass. But something in that apartment changed both of us. Maybe it was just mental illness, maybe grief, or maybe there really was something in the air, something that needed someone to listen to it. I'll probably never know. But here's what I do know. I haven't left a window open in years, and when the heat turns on and I hear that faint whistle, I still catch myself holding my breath, counting just to be sure. If this story kept you watching till the end, you know what to do. Like, share, and subscribe. It helps more than you think. New stories every week, same voice, new nightmares.